Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Puan Amalina. Okay, class. Today we will learn chapter number 3. The title is Noise Pollution. Okay, enjoy your learning. Okay, 3.1 Properties of sound wave. Sound wave is defined as a traveling wave, which is an oscillation of pressure transmitted through a solid, liquid, or gas, composed of frequencies within the range of hearing. As you can see here, this is the sound wave, the normal at normal density. Okay, next we look at amplitude, wavelength, and frequencies. Okay, amplitude and wavelength is the maximum displacement of a vibrating particle of the medium from the mean position. So if you can see, amplitude is the vertical distance, wavelength is a horizontal distance, and whereas frequency definition, it is the number of vibrations made per second by the particle. Either the frequency is low or high. Properties of sound wave. The sensation felt by our ears is called sound. It is form of energy which makes us hear. Sound travels in the form of wave. Okay, so a wave is a vibratory disturbance in a medium which carries energy from one point to another without there being a direct contact between the 2 points. Gain, amplitude is the vertical value, and then wavelength is the value from the peak point to another peak point in a horizontal distance. And then a cycle of a wave, this is one cycle, and starting the wave to travel, okay, until end of the wave is the time for one cycle.
Sound is a wave. That is, it's a vibration that travels through a medium, like air or water. If you drop a rock into a bucket of water, you disturb the surface of the water and create ripples or waves which travel away from the impact. The ripples cause the height of the water to change, going up and down, as the wave moves away from the splash. These waves are visible with our eyes and have a number of properties. They have a maximum point called a crest, a minimum point called a trough, They have a wavelength, which is the distance from a particular crest to the next one. They have an amplitude, which is the distance from the center line to the top of a crest or to the bottom of a trough. They have a frequency, which is the number of waves that pass a fixed point per second. They have a speed, which is just wavelength times frequency. And they have a direction. Sound waves are similar. If you clap your hands in a quiet room, you will disturb the air and cause ripples of air to move away from your hands. The clap disturbs the air molecules near your hands. These molecules then bounce into other nearby molecules and so on, so that the disturbance moves through the air like a wave, a sound wave. But sound waves are different to water waves in one respect. Water waves are transverse. This means that as the wave is moving in one direction, say to the right, it's creating a disturbance in the perpendicular direction, so up and down. Sound waves, on the other hand, are longitudinal. This means that as the wave is moving in one direction, say to the right, it's creating a disturbance in that same direction, so left to right. A transverse wave coming from behind lifts you up and then drops you down like a boat in the ocean, while a longitudinal wave coming from behind pushes you forward and then pulls you back like a spring. But when representing sound waves graphically, it's easier to draw them as transverse waves, so that it just looks like a regular sine graph. But really, this sine wave is the motion of the air particle as it travels through time. Another way of presenting this is that the low points on the sine wave are where air particles are spread far apart, and the high points on the sine wave are where air particles are bunched together. Sound waves cause changes in air pressure as particles bunch together and spread apart. Now we can't see these ripples, but our ears can hear them. When the waves reach our ears, the air pressure goes up and down, and this makes our eardrums go in and out at the same rate. Our brain analyzes these signals and interprets them as sound. Otherwise, sound waves have all the same features as water waves. They have a speed, which is naturally the speed of sound, or roughly 343 meters per second through air. And they have a frequency and a wavelength, which determines the pitch of the sound, where the shorter the wavelength, the higher the frequency and the higher the pitch of the note. And they have an amplitude, which is the energy of the wave and affects the volume of the sound, though it's actually a bit more complex than this. In the next few videos, we'll go into these topics in a bit more depth.
Um, 2.2 Sound power and intensity. So sound power is the energy rate, right? The energy rate emitted by a source. Energy of sound per unit of time. Also, the unit is joule per second or watts. Okay. Power carried by sound wave per unit area in a direction perpendicular to that area. Okay. This is for intensity. Intensity definition is power over unit area. Okay, for this case, intensity I equals to P over 4 pi r squared. Okay. So source of sound, if there is no barrier, so it will travel direct to the receiver. But if there is a barrier, right? Okay, barrier here. The source is not directly transmitted to the receiver. Okay, so it will not directly, indirectly it is indirectly transmitted from the source to the receiver. Okay, so there are three parameters for sound, for wave sound that we need to know. The first one is sound pressure. Unit is pascals. Okay, since it is pressure, so unit must be in pascals. And then sound power. So power unit must be in watt or joule per second. And then intensity. Intensity, watts per meter squared. So intensity, previously we use capital I for the capital I noted for intensity. Okay, next audiogram. Audiogram is a graph that shows the softest sound a person can hear at a different pitch or frequencies. Okay, pitch or frequencies is the same thing. So these are the audiogram. If you can look here, we have normal hearing, mild hearing, moderate hearing, moderately severe hearing, and profound hearing. Okay.
How to read an audiogram. Reading an audiogram can seem pretty complex, but once you know the basics, it's really pretty simple. First of all, you may be wondering, what is an audiogram? An audiogram is a graph that shows information about a person's hearing abilities. Let's take a look at the various parts of the audiogram. First, let's look at it from top to bottom. The audiogram measures sound intensity, or loudness, in decibels, which are listed from 0 decibels at the top to 120 decibels at the bottom. Running from left to right is frequency, or pitch, which is measured in hertz. The frequency starts on the left side with 125 hertz and goes up to 8,000 hertz on the right side. This is just like a piano keyboard that has the lowest frequencies on the left and the highest frequencies on the right. On a typical audiogram, you will also see two lines, one red and one blue. The red line represents the hearing in your right ear, and the blue line represents your left ear. If your audiogram does not have colors, then the line with the X's represent your left ear, and the line with the circles represent your right ear. Let's take a moment to focus on the sound loudness, which runs from top to bottom and is measured in decibels. If your hearing is normal, you should see an X, or a circle, that falls into the 0 to 20 decibel range for each frequency. That means you can understand speech in a noisy environment and no amplification is needed. If you have mild hearing loss, you will see the X or circle in the 20 to 40 decibel range. Mild hearing loss means you may be having difficulty understanding speech in noisy environments. It may also mean that you require a higher volume level when watching the television or listening to the stereo. Because of this, family members are often the first to notice. Moderate hearing loss will be marked in the 40 to 70 decibel range. With moderate hearing loss, you will frequently have difficulty understanding speech in noisy environments including the telephone, television, and at public gatherings. You may find that you are regularly asking people to repeat themselves and you get frustrated because you are missing what they are saying. People may also tell you that you speak too loudly in conversations. If you have severe hearing loss, the X or circle will fall in the 70 to 90 decibel range. This means you are having significant difficulty hearing during most types of communication, and you may start avoiding noisy places where you know you will miss much of the conversation. And if your hearing loss is profound, you will see the mark in the 90 to 120 decibel range. At this level, you are having major communication problems in all situations. Profound hearing loss typically requires visual assistance while communicating, such as lip reading or sign language. Now let's look at the frequency, which runs from left to right. Vowels such as A, E, I, O, and U are the lowest pitch and fall towards the left side of the hearing range. Consonants such as S, T, F, and Sh are higher pitched and fall towards the right side of the hearing range. Oftentimes, these higher frequencies are also associated with women's voices. This section of the audiogram is commonly referred to as the speech zone because most human voices reside within this range of frequency and volume. Now that we know what the various parts of the audiogram are, let's take a look at a few examples. In our first example, you will notice that this person has hearing that falls into the normal range up to about 1500 Hz. At 2000 Hz, their hearing starts to make its way into the mild hearing loss category, more so for the left ear. At 4000 Hz, there's a significant difference and the hearing is now in the moderate hearing loss category. At 8000 Hz, this person's hearing falls into the severe hearing loss category. In this next example, the person's hearing falls regularly within the mild hearing loss category, except at 4000 Hz, where it drops slightly into the moderate hearing loss area. Congratulations! You now know how to read an audiogram. In our next video, we will quickly show you how to compare your audiogram to the fitting range for each hearing aid so that you can make an informed decision about the hearing aid that is right for you. Thanks for watching and have a great day.
Alright, we look at this audiogram. The horizontal axis of the audiogram represents sound frequencies and measured in Hertz, right? And the vertical axis of the audiogram is representing intensity, and it is measured in decibel, dB. Okay, we look back at the horizontal axis. Sound frequency increases gradually the further one moves to the right along the axis. Okay, like a piano, right? Gradually moving to the right side, the tone becomes more and more high pitch. Okay, and basically, when we converse, our frequency will be between 500 Hz to 3000 Hz. Okay, we look back at that vertical axis. The more one move down the axis, okay, once we move down to the axis in vertical axis, the louder the sound will be. Okay, the louder the sound will become. So it is just like a radio. Analogy from radio. The upper or the top part of this axis, the sound is soft and it is normally able to hear. And as it is, we go to the drop down of vertical axis, right? The sound is increased and it will indicate that one cannot hear, okay, any sound at all. So as the value at vertical axis is bigger, so the sound will be louder. Okay. So severe hearing loss. People with hearing level in the severe range may only hear very loud speech or loud environmental sounds such as a fire truck siren or a door slamming. So you can see here about between 70 decibel until 90 decibel. This is the area for people who have a severe hearing loss. For moderate hearing loss, the level is moderate range, and it will have difficulty hearing regular speech even at close distance, and the decibel of hearing level is between 40 to 50 decibel, from 40 to 50 decibel until 60 to 70 decibel. Okay. Mild hearing loss, people with hearing level in the mild range will have trouble hearing and understand soft speech, speech from a distance, or speech in a background of noise. So mild hearing loss between 10-20 decibel to 40 to 50 decibel. And for us, for a normal hearing, if the value is between 10 decibel, right, left and right ear, so you are at a normal stage, normal hearing decibel. The closer the marks to the top of the graph, the softer the sound that person can hear. So here, this is an example of a graph of a person, right? So we need to discuss from this audiogram, okay, whether this person have problems at he or at his or her ear. Okay, as an example here, so the discussion can be in the audiogram shown, hearing threshold for the right ear are represented by red circles, and threshold for the left ear are represented by the blue or X. Okay, so this is the thing that we need to put in our discussion. The right ear and the left ear. So for the right ear, the red circle, this person has a normal hearing in the lower pitches. Okay, as you can see, it corresponds to 15 decibel. Alright, starting 15, okay, from the range of 0 to 10, 10 to 20 is a normal hearing. Alright, until at okay, so it corresponding from 10 decibel is correspond to 250 hertz. Okay, and 20 decibel at 500 hertz. Okay, so 20 decibel at 500 hertz. So look at this point. Hearing threshold in the high pitches fall into the severe degree of hearing loss. As you can see, the threshold at 2000, right? Hertz is 40 dB. Okay, and then 65 dB at 4000 hertz, and 75 dB at 8000 hertz. So we can see this normal person, this person has a normal hearing at a lower pitch. Okay. This is a figure that you might need to try. Example, audiogram. Okay, at the questions, a 20-year-old construction worker has an audiogram done. The results are shown in figure. Based on the given audiogram, what can you conclude about his current hearing condition? If the construction worker continues his current lifestyle, interpret his hearing condition at the age of 65. Support your answer with a suitable sketches of the audiogram. Okay, so you can try and discuss. Make sure you have the points which is valid and must relate to the audiogram, and total marks would be 6 marks. Okay. 3.3 measurement of noise. We will use this sound pressure level meter, okay, to measure noise. So the figure shows here is the sound pressure level meter. So sound pressure level meter is an instrument, have a microphone amplifier and weighting networks and an indicating meter which give a reading in decibel point. So this sound pressure level meter, the parameter or the unit given is in dB, decibel. Relative to this is the the tolerance, okay, 2 by time 10⁻⁵ Newton per meter squared. So the microphone responds directly to the pressure variations in the sound field, and its output is amplified to give a reading of sound pressure level directly on the meter.
Hearing protection seems to come up more and more as something we need to pay attention to on any job site. Hearing loss is one of those things that happens over time, so it's not always a top priority for younger people. With that being said, we want to put together a quick guide to understanding sound pressure levels and the decibel scale. Sound pressure level, or SPL, is a measurement of sound pressure that uses pascals as its unit of measurement. We typically convert that into the more recognized decibel scale. Sound pressure is the difference between the pressure from a sound wave and the ambient pressure of what the sound is traveling through. The reason sound pressure levels and decibels are so important is that it gives us a numerical scale to work with when we want to prevent hearing loss. When it comes to the sound pressure level, which is what causes the actual damage, it doubles every 3 decibels and has a magnitude of 10 times every 10 dB. To put that into practice, let's consider a conversation that registers 60 dB on the decibel scale. A louder conversation at 63 decibels has 2 times the sound pressure level. One at 66 dB has 4 times the SPL, and a group of people talking at 70 dB would be 10 times the SPL of our original conversation. But when it comes to how loud something sounds, it's a slightly different ballgame. But we can still explain it using the decibel scale. For every 10 decibels you go up, the noise sounds twice as loud. In our previous example, that 70 dB group conversation sounds twice as loud as our initial conversation. Now, OSHA defines how much noise you can be exposed to over time. For example, you can work for 8 hours with your ears catching 90 decibels, or you can work for 1 hour at 105 decibels. There's a large variety of hearing protection on the market that lets you work longer without violating OSHA daily limits. When you're shopping for hearing protection, look for the NRR value. That's the noise reduction rating. It tells you just how many decibels the device reduces. So, if you're working in an environment that's pretty constant at 105 dB and you use earmuffs with an NRR rating of 25, your ears are only exposed to 80 decibels. It's super simple, and it's a crucial lesson that could save your hearing in the long run. Hey, help us out by subscribing to the channel below and tap that bell to get notified when we post new tool reviews and shootouts. And as always, thanks for watching.
On the sound pressure level meter, we have the parameter which is generally need to be considered. The first one is frequency weighting, and the second one is time weighting. Okay, for frequency weighting, we have Z, A, and C weighting. For Z weighting is the actual sound that produced. A weighting either it is at lower or higher frequencies. Okay, where for E weighting, it is representing human that capable of hearing. Human capable of hearing. Okay, and then C weighting is the sensitive or the lower frequencies. Okay, the lower frequencies represents humans hear when the sound is loud. Okay, for C weighting. And then for time weighting, we have F for fast, S for slow, and I impulse. So for slow, equivalent to 1 second. For fast is 135 millisecond. Okay, as we can see here, sound level meter, the values starting from 1 dB until 100 dB. Okay, so the small the value representing whether it is at a silent mode, quiet, until a high value more than 70, more than 60, it is at a noisy state, until 100 plus, great damage to hearing. Okay, so we look at LEQ. LEQ is the equivalent continuous sound level. Equivalent values are a form of time weighting that easier to read on a display than the instantaneous sound level. So Lmax and Lminimum representing the maximum or the minimum value measured at the sound pressure level meter. These are the equipment that we can use in order to measure noise level. So equipment that we have here are sound level meter, impulse meter, frequency analyzers, graphic recorders, noise decimeters, and calibrators. Basically, originally we will use in the lab, we have sound level meter. Okay, this is the equation for sound pressure level calculation. So SPL is for sound pressure level, P is for total. So formula would be 10 by log the summation of 10 to the power of SPL I over 10. Okay, SPL are based on a log scale, so we cannot edit the value of SPL directly. In example here, 80 dB plus 80 dB is not equals to 160 dB. Okay.
Sound pressure level calculation. Questions given: two machines producing 80 decibel each. What is the total sound pressure level? We will use the general equation SPLT equals to 10 by log. So these equations depends on how many machines that we have. So this, since the questions says that we have two machines, so we need to expand this part. So expanding this part, 10 to the power of 80 decibel for the first machine over 10. Okay, and then plus another same decibel for the second machine, so 80 over 10. Now simplify this part, so 2 by 10 to the power of 8. Okay, we will use our calculator. For this part, 10 by log 2 by shift log to the power of 8. So the answer would be 83. So 83 decibel. Given 4 machines producing 100 dB, 91 dB, 90 dB, and 89 dB. So we have 4 machines. What is the total sound pressure level, SPL? So we will use the same general equation for SPL total. Okay, expanding this part. Since we have 4 machines, 10 by log. First machine 100 decibel, second machine 91 decibel, third machine 90, and the fourth machine 89. So simplify each of the power here. So this would be 10 or the power of 10, 9.1, 9, and 8.9. Okay, now we will use our calculator. We will key in this part, this equation. So 10 by log shift the power of 10 plus shift the power of 9.1 plus the power of plus shift the power of 9 plus shift to the power of 8.9. So the answer would be 101.16 or 0.2 decibel.
Uh, 3.4 effect of noise on to the human health, right? So basically, noise pollution will cause hearing problems. Okay, hearing problems. So it will damage our eardrums and loss of hearing. So from the hearing problem, it will reduce ear sensitivity to the sound. Other than that, it will also affect the psychological health. What are the psychological health? Such as aggressive behavior, sleep disturbance, okay, disturb your overnight sleep, and then stress, fatigue, hypertension, and so on. Also, it can create communication problems since your ear have problems. So basically, it will also affect the communication problems.
This is not healthy. When you hear about pollution, you might picture exhaust fumes, littering, or oil spills. But there's another kind of pollution you might not know: noise pollution. Like any other pollution, it's a nuisance to society. Plus, everyone hates it.
A few years ago, the Census Bureau did a survey on what people like and dislike about their neighborhoods. And what they found was that noise was Americans' #1 complaint about their neighborhoods and the #1 reason why they wish to move.
But comfort isn't all that's at stake. Our hearing, overall health, and well-being of our children is in jeopardy. In 2016, 54.5% of the world's population lived in cities. By 2030, it's estimated that that population will grow to be 60%. Noise pollution can be found anywhere, but it's especially bad in cities. Here's a map of the loudest places in the US. Not surprising, cities top the list. They have background levels between 55 and 67 decibels. That's about as loud as the hum from your air conditioner, and it sounds like this. You'll notice that's not including random spikes of noise you hear throughout the day, like this. The human ear can tolerate noise up to 85 decibels without damage. Anything louder poses a risk of permanent hearing loss. Yet, studies show that anything at or above 65 decibels can trigger an increase in blood pressure, heart rate, and stress hormones in the blood. This is what an average New Yorker hears every day. Over time, we can get used to these sounds, but that doesn't make them any less dangerous.
My name is Kit Frank. I am an audiologist at NYU Langone. So I don't think we build up a tolerance to sound. Anatomically, there's nothing that changes that can protect you from sound in your ear just because you're around it a lot. It's probably more of a psychological effect that you just don't notice it because you hear it all the time.
In 2007, researchers released results from their study on 200,000 hearing tests worldwide. They discovered that city residents had noticeable levels of hearing loss. Their hearing was what it should have been if they were 10 to 20 years older. And once the damage is done, it's irreversible. We have microscopic hairs in our ears that relay sound to the brain. They're fine-tuned to detect vibrating frequencies from our eardrum. If those vibrations are too strong, it can bend, break, or even destroy these delicate hairs. But unlike the hairs on your head, these don't grow back. Since we cannot see or feel these hairs, the damage from noise pollution can go unnoticed for years, even decades. According to the World Health Organization, noise is an underestimated threat that can cause a number of short and long-term health problems, such as sleep disturbance, cardiovascular effects, and poorer work and school performance. One of the most famous studies on noise pollution was in 1974. It happened here at Public School 98 in New York City. The east side of the building faces the subway. When trains passed, the noise pollution in the classroom went from an average of 59 decibels to 89. Teachers had to shout over the noise, and this happened about every 4.5 minutes for 30 seconds at a time. The two researchers compared test scores and reading levels of students on the east versus the west sides of the building. While students on the west side weren't affected, students on the east side were, on average, 4 months behind on reading level, and they performed worse on achievement tests. More studies have gone on to show that children who live in noisy environments have elevated blood pressure and stress hormones. There is one silver lining to all of this. A pair of inexpensive earplugs are an easy, temporary fix to this problem. For more short-term solutions, various cities have started implementing quiet hours, or ticketing people for noise pollution under the category of quality of life fines.
One great example is Germany. There they ban lawn mowing on Sundays. You know, Sundays are supposed to be a day of rest, and so who can rest when all of your neighbors are blasting away with their lawnmowers and their leaf blowers? Also in Europe, the European Union generally, they have significant noise restrictions on commercial products like dishwashers and refrigerators and other household items and lawnmowers and leaf blowers. I also understand that India has now banned the two-stroke gas engine. So definitely there are other countries that are taking this issue much more seriously than the U.S. is.
If there ever is a permanent fix to this problem, it hinges on one question. When will we start taking noise pollution seriously?
Uh, 3.5 regulations and standards. So basically, noise pollution is stated in the Environmental Quality Act 1974. Okay, in this act, stated that no person shall, unless licensed emit or cause or permit to be emitted any noise. No person cannot, okay, or causes any noise greater in volume or intensity from the acceptable conditions specified in section 21. So any person who contravenes subsection number 1 shall be guilty an offence and shall be liable to a fine. So can be fined not exceeding 100,000 ringgit or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 5 years or both. Okay. And a further fine, also have further fine if this problem is still faced. So further fine will be not exceeding 500 ringgit a day for every day that the offence continued to make noise. Right? Okay, as you can see here, this is the noise level in decibels in dB. So normal conservation or novel conservation should be in 60 dB. NIOSH recommended that exposure limit only to 85 dB. So if it is more than 85 dB, we can conclude it as a noise pollution. So these are the sources of noise pollution: hand drill, spray painter, chainsaw, hammer drill, pneumatic precision drill. Okay. 3.6 control infrastructure. Okay, so from our previous topic, we have know already what is sound level, what are the sources to sound level, or what are the equipment that we can use to determine sound. And then we also learn what are the value for sound which can be stated as a noise pollution. And now we look at 3.6. What are the solution to reduce sound level? So at this topic, usually for this silent mode is implement at the root. Okay, at the road where we know on the road traffic is very noise, right? So that's why we can implement this silent road. So the application of silent roads is the texture is semi-porous and thin layers, so it's a very smooth surface texture, so it can absorb noise because the material used can absorb noise. So where it is located, it is installed barriers between the employee and the noise sources. So for this control infrastructure, usually will be used at the road to control traffic noise. This control infrastructure have three principles to control noise. First one is control at noise sources. Okay, directly control the noise sources. Secondly, noise reduction at the transmission path. And then the third one is protection at the reservoir end. Okay, the first principle, control at the noise sources. So we can control the working method and the technologies that we use. Okay, quieter the working methods, and use technologies that can reduce the noise. In example, if you have a washing machine, the latest technologies in washing machine, they have a silent mode. Okay, and then next, second point, noise reduction at the transmission path. So at the road we can use earthbound, and then at the cities we can use commercial blocks, and also podium decking. Then the third principle is protection at the reservoir end. Okay, so here it states that we can arrange the plan, okay, the plan of our house. In example here, bedrooms for us to sleep, we're facing it away from the noise sources from the roads. Okay, because we want to reduce the noise to the reservoir.
Does anyone know what a noise barrier is?
You know, who'll know? Tell us, Mr. Audio.
Anyone who's ever ridden on an interstate highway will have seen noise barriers lining portions of the road. The Noise Control Act of 1972 mandates them. The noise from cars comes primarily from the interaction of tires on the pavement, whereas truck noise comes primarily from the engine. And, as traffic moves faster, there's also aerodynamic noise. Research shows that the noise from highways that are below grade is the most attenuated. So earthwork berms or concrete masonry or metal walls are erected to contain the noise. Sound propagates in waves through the air, but also a big component of the sound travels along the ground. Because of this, some theatrical productions use what's called a stage mouse, which is a microphone cradled on the floor with the capsule directed at the floor. A PZM, pressure zone microphone, also works by picking up the sound moving along a flat surface. Farmers have noticed that the ambient sound is much quieter after a field has been plowed, since the ruts from the plow make the surface irregular, breaking up the ground wave. This fact was used to help design a sound barrier for the Amsterdam airport, where the ground was smooth and flat and the noise from the air traffic was particularly bothersome to its neighbors. The airport reshaped the ground surrounding the runways and created what appears to be from the air a giant diffuser. These large mounds interrupt the ground wave and greatly reduce the noise pollution.
Thanks, Mr. Audio.
For more interesting facts about sound, visit Mr. Audio at soundimages.com.
Okay, here at the road, if you can see this figure, we have two control infrastructure. We have the gabion block, right? Okay, it's a gabion block, and we also have the road where we use asphalt or quieter asphalt to reduce noise at the road. Okay, this control infrastructure, we use noise barriers with terra force blocks. Okay, basically this we use at the airport because why? The noise pollution from the airplane, okay, it is very high, so we need this noise berm, right, to control the noise pollution. Okay, lastly, we need to care our hearing ability. Okay, we don't know our lifetime that we have until what age. So from now on, please take care of our ear. If you exposed to noise more than 85 decibel, you can permanently lose your hearing ability. So make sure you take care of your ear and use a low sound to have safe ears. Okay, alright, thank you. That's all from me. Assalamualaikum.